Hello, my name is Chelsea Beavers, and I am going to be presenting on technology 20 years ago versus today. Just starting with the very first slide, I did select a couple of images that came up whenever Googling 20 years ago versus today with technology. And as you can see, just in the first image on the left, the computer looks considerably different than the ones of today. It's large, it's bulky, but they seem really excited that they're talking about it. So, yes, technology has come a long way, but it was a huge, considerable advantage to education whenever it became available. So, just looking at the student there and seeing how happy they are, it's a pretty cool image. And then the one on the right, I just found really humorous. Looking at 15 years ago, how excited someone would get whenever they would get an email, and now how excited people get when they actually receive a letter in the mail. I relate to that specifically because I get emails all day long at work, and when I get a handwritten letter in the mail, it just means so much more. So it's so funny to see the difference between just 15, 20 years ago versus today. Moving on to the next portion of my presentation, I just really wanted to break down just the simplicity through the everyday items that we really use and see how far they've come from 20 years ago versus 2018. Something we use daily, I mean, for our phones, for instance, comparing cell phones from 20 years ago, the big bulky items that you really used, but they worked very well. I mean, they didn't get very good reception. They weren't convenient to carry around, but we thought we were really cool when we were able to use one. And think of also the cost. Yes, cell phones cost a lot today, but considering how lacking as well, how well they worked back 20 years ago, considering how well they work now, I would think that it is quite worth the money whenever you're looking at buying a smartphone of today compared to a big block phone of 20 years ago. And also thinking phones in general, 20 years ago we were using home phones. We still have those one-offs nowadays, and especially with people living in the country that do not get good cell service, which I'm sure that will change in the future, but myself included, we grew up with a home phone, and if we wanted to talk in privacy, we had to drag the phone along with the long cord into the other room. So that was a great way to grow up, but my kids, unfortunately, will never know that feeling. I feel like that's almost kind of a nostalgic feeling, I guess, when you think about it. And looking at computers, I sit at one every day for 8 hours straight. And when I think about how they worked, what they looked like, what advantages they had 20 years ago compared to now, it's quite different. The very first time I sat at a computer, it was at my cousin's house, and they had the money at the time to buy one, and they had floppy disks. And I was like, what is this? And they would show me all the different games that they had, and one of them, as you can see, the image that I posted on here was the Oregon Trail, and I thought that was the best game in the world. And honestly, I still miss that game just because it's so simple. And then we're looking at the tablets nowadays that it's just a press of a button and we can bring up about any game that we want to. I also wanted to look at it from a viewpoint of how does technology affect your career, and if you're someone of a senior standpoint and you were in that same field 20 years ago, how has your life changed? So I work in the dental field, specifically the administrator role, but even just looking at the clinical and administrator role, we look at see what has changed over the years. And one of the first things that comes to mind is x-rays. 20 years ago, it was chemical x-rays. You had to develop the film after taking it. And there was a little bit more radiation that had to be exposed for the x-ray to work. And these days, you really don't see that. Everything is through a computer system, through a computer software. So as a click of a button and very little radiation, you're going to see a fantastic image come through, which means faster diagnosis and means the faster you're going to get out of pain as treatment can be applied. No paper records. You obviously 20 years ago you would have seen a big notebook, and it would have been the notebook that nobody touched or everyone left in the same spot because it had everybody's appointments in it. It wasn't as reliable. If a fire or natural disaster happened, you would lose all that information. And there are very little offices nowadays that still use those paper records because of those reasons. If you look at an office now that has basically a computer software program that holds all of the appointments, they're going to be backing up that information daily, if more than once daily, to ensure that they always have an up-to-date backup in case a natural disaster, fire, or even like a server goes down in the office. They can have all the information to pull right back up instead of having to re-enter information. So it's very, very important. So the third thing when I think of with my career field is scheduling appointments for patients. So whenever you do that into a software program, it really creates an opportunity to build your practice when it comes to texting patients. Some softwares out there can automatically throw texts out to patients, reminding them of their appointments, or even asking for reviews for opportunity afterwards. And they can get those reminder cards in the mail if you leave without an appointment, just saying, hey, you know what, you're due for your cleaning, why don't you come back in? So what a difference 20 years can make. It's huge, and it's something we really should celebrate. One of the last items I really wanted to go over, and the main thing I think of when it comes to technology changing over 20 years, is entertainment. 20 years ago, like I talked about before, my main source of entertainment was board games, Saturday morning cartoons, playing outside. And the one thing I really had growing up was my Nintendo 64. It's like the one thing that we had a little extra money to spend on, but I didn't sit all day playing it. I had other things to do. I was a very busy little girl. And then looking at now, I have a 4-year-old and an 18-month-old, and seeing where they really like to spend their time, which is their tablet. They have fun games that they learn things on in there. They watch a program called YouTube Kids, where they literally sit and watch other children playing with toys, which is crazy to me. And I have to fight to get them to play outside. So it really is trying to apply my childhood to theirs, but finding that common ground too, because I do understand that over years things are going to change, and I have to be open and flexible with that as well. So just to conclude the presentation, that these are some items that I really wanted to hit on, and I do feel like 20 years from now, my children might even be presenting on the same subject, and I can't wait to see what changes come in the future. To be honest, it's probably going to be a lot bigger change than even from whenever I was a child to now here present. So I just look forward to the future, and thanks for the opportunity to be able to present on this subject.